Well, hey everyone, I'm Nick, and welcome back to episode 3 of Sci-Finatics Live for 2025. And we have a very absolute special guest on today. David and I are absolutely wrapped. We've got him on the show to talk everything about his experiences in Star Trek and life and all that sort of stuff. It is our absolute pleasure to welcome for the show today Evan Evagora, who obviously played Elnor in Star Trek Picard. Welcome, Evan.
Thank you for having me. It's nice to see you again, Nick, and nice to meet you, David. How are we doing this lovely Melbourne morning / American late night?
American evening. Late afternoon, early evening, I think it is in the US. Yes, but it's Sunday morning here for us in down under.
Yep, we love it. Finally, some good weather here.
Absolutely.
And I don't have to be on the coffee and V drinks for a change, which is great. Yeah.
This is true. This is true. Normally for all our US viewers, normally when I'm doing the live show, it's about 2 or 3 in the morning for David and I, because we try to tailor it to the majority audience, you guys over in the US and everything. So yes, normally we're a little bit more sleep deprived than we are today. So it should be a good show.
We're well rested.
We are indeed. So today we'll be talking obviously to Evan about a lot of his time on Star Trek Picard and everything, and a little bits and pieces about his character Elnor. We've got a few little fun bits and pieces to be had today. So stick around for them. It's going to be a good show. So I might kick off the questions just talking to Evan about how Elnor changed a lot over the course of Picard. What would you say was the toughest and most rewarding part about showing the growth of the character of Elnor on screen, Evan?
I think the toughest part, honestly, was obviously we were in lockdown when we were shooting. The toughest part about actually filming, I think, was coordinating with everyone and having to wear masks all the time. I think one of the great things was, despite a pandemic going on, we were still able to tell like a very rich story. For the character himself, I don't know, I feel like there's such a drastic change in his path from season 1 to season 2. I think he really finds himself and comes into his own, even though it's cut short because of the whole time travel and untimely death. But I think it mirrored myself, really. In season 1, he's this alien going off on an adventure in a place, in an environment with people he doesn't know, doing a mission he doesn't really understand. And that was kind of me heading over to Los Angeles. And then by the time season 2 came around, Elnor has these parental figures, these people he really respects. He's, pursuing kind of this dream that he wants to live out. And that was very much my mindset when I returned to the States to shoot season 2. So I'd say that would be the just how it mirrored my reality a lot. But people tend to say that when they get roles. I saw a lot of myself in the character, so I think it transferred very well across the screen.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good to be able to use that method acting style of use what you're going through in your performance, I guess.
Exactly. Thank God they didn't make him like an alcoholic or anything, because I don't know how.
Could have been fun. Shit-faced Elnor.
I somehow think Elnor wouldn't necessarily be able to hold his liquor too well. I think he would be having, because remember we saw him having a bit of a drink for the first time. Was it for the first time, or that particular drink for the first time in the bar with Raffi and Seven or whatever?
Yeah, I definitely was for the first time. And hopefully the last. I don't know. I think sober living agrees with him.
Yes, it keeps him sharp, so he can slice people up, more effectively.
Exactly. Yes, I can't even imagine the number of bar fights he probably would have gotten into if he had a few drinks. So let's keep him sober. Make it sober. There we go.
Make it sober. Love it. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess tapping into that, so with, I guess you drew a bit on yourself, Evan, in terms of like that parallel between Elnor and yourself in terms of that journey. How did you get the unique mix of Coat? I always have problems with this pronunciation. The Coat Malat honesty and the youthful spirit, sort of balancing out those two dynamics. And did you have any sort of special ways for preparing for those scenes?
I would view it as he is pretty much just a kid speaking his own opinion. I know I was like 24 at the time, but Issa and I both felt like the babies on the set. I think her character is a lot more mature than mine. So it really was like with the help of Frakes giving me kind of an understanding of this, because, it's the first Romulan we've ever really seen like that. So we've got this kid who's not really secretive, he's very open and honest and just kind of like blunt with things, but also doesn't understand the repercussions of those. And I was like, that's very much like a child, going up to a person being like, why is your hair gray? Or what's that thing on your face? Or so it was to try and keep a mind of curiosity, unashamedly. So that was kind of the mindset going into it. And that wasn't even realized, I think, until I read the episode 3, which became episode 4. And to be honest, when I got sent the script, I didn't even know the character's name. I thought it was K-Bar, the code name that I auditioned with. So I had to email production and be like, which character am I in this? I'm so confused. And then they were like, you're Elnor. No one's told you. And I'm like, nah, no one has really said anything to me. So
right.
I got sent episodes to watch.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, I got sent
nice to know.
Star Trek, but no one told me my character's name.
Wow.
Mm.
And did everybody else know except for you, or did nobody know at that point?
No, I think
like
it was just,
in terms of other cast members and so forth.
No. I mean, they were well into when I arrived. They were already shooting episode 1 and 2, so I was lucky enough to go on the set and have a look around at what was going on. And I was getting sent the scripts, but I knew that I was coming in on episode 3, which obviously became 4. But there's just a lot of talk of the Romulans in that episode, so I was just confused as to where I come into it. But it was made clear to me pretty quickly. I think it was like I sent an email off, and then 5 minutes later, they're like, "You're Elnor," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I can keep reading then."
Yeah, right. Excellent. So I think you previously mentioned that you wanted to, read the scripts ahead of time, knowing what was going to come beforehand. How did reading ahead in the scripts affect your performance? Like, did it help you play Elnor's journey, or did it make it kind of harder for you to react genuinely to things, as they happened, more like a surprise sort of thing?
I mean, that is a great question. It does inform you where your character is going to end up. So it kind of puts the blinkers on in a sense. So you've got this guardrail. So there's things that your character would do, and then things that are just completely out there. So everything with acting is choices you make in the scene, choices you even make in the moment. Like if you have a plan, you got to kind of throw that away at the end of the day anyway. And as soon as it hits rolling, whatever you're feeling in the moment, that's you, that's your character. It's about just finding these kind of like links and emotions and thought process in order to help build something before you head in. So yeah, it was very informative, very helpful. Reading my death in season 2 wasn't very helpful, because I was like, when am I coming back? So every week it would just be going through the script being like, where am I? Am I coming back yet?
Oh no.
Yeah. But I read the script where I come back as the hologram, like maybe 6 weeks before we started filming the episode. So after that, I was just, walking with a little more pep in my step, and, just excited to see Elnor in action.
Yeah. Was it when you came back at that point, was that for 1 or 2 episodes?
I think it was.
Do you remember?
Yeah, I can't remember, because a lot of things were out of order. So like me, Me coming back on the ship when everything's restored. I think we shot that before I came back as the hologram. So I knew in what context and like how things end up, even though that episode hadn't really been written, but I had the side, like my sides for it, my scene for it, just because of locations with filming and everything like that. But what was the question? I rambled a little bit there.
Oh no, it was just as to whether how many episodes when you came back as a hologram.
Oh, I think it was two. I think it was two.
2 episodes. Yeah. And then a little appearance at the end. I think on the last episode. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So they gave my character his moment. It was nice. It was really lovely, just to be able to kick ass.
Because there was a flashback and a hologram. Actually, I think there was a couple of sort of elements in those episodes towards the end of the season. Yeah.
They had a guy during the coming off the ice bus. And I remember when I met him, he looked exactly like me with long hair and everything. It was kind of surreal seeing this kid. They flew from, I think, Texas. And I went on set and just met with him and then shot my scene and left. It was pretty cool. Wow. Just shooting on some kind of highway in like rural LA County felt almost like Thelma and Louise.
Ironically, we're now seeing stuff in real life that mirrors the ice type stuff that was going on in Picard season 2. It's like, we're kind of getting some of that in real life now.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah,
I'm hoping for a better tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see about that. My visa just got reapproved, so I'm heading back to the States next week. I haven't been there since before the election, so I don't know how. I mean, I live in New York, so it's just a very different kind of like environment. But it'll be interesting just to get, people who live there, their perspective on everything and just their thoughts on what's happening. And because we risk the news we watch here is obviously not the news people watch over there. I'm watching like ABC 24-hour news or like Al Jazeera. Everyone I know over there watches like one of the big 3 normally networks over there. So it'll be interesting. Don't know what I'm going back to, but excited to get back.
Very good.
Maybe book that road trip, go across the States and go wild.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe I'll have to renew my license before I do that. Otherwise, I don't want to be caught in like Tennessee or something, driving and then all of a sudden I'm back here.
Yes.
No, they got some very strange DI. Like they don't just use a breathalyzer over there. They kind of get you to do all these sort of like walk the line, hop 6 times and balance a bowl of fruit on your head. There's a few different sort of things that they get you to do over there for checking your inebriation level. I've seen on YouTube videos.
I just hope they don't make me say the alphabet backwards because I can't do that sober.
Oh. So, I wouldn't be able to do that. Yeah.
We'll do that later on. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be in trouble if that's the case.
Yeah. So maybe on back to Picard. So for season 3, Evan, like if Elnor had have had like I guess a continuation in that journey for season 3, which I'm sure we all would have loved. What part of the story do you think that would have filled, and where would you have liked to have seen that go? Like, would it have been more of a Starfleet career, or would it may have been going a bit more Thelma and Louise, a bit off the tracks, a bit off the beaten tracks, and going a bit rogue? What's your?
I think it would have been. I think it would have been rogue. Like at the end of the day, he does have a problem with authority. So although the Academy is a good place for him, or was a good place for him during season 2, I don't actually see him being much of a Starfleet career man. Unless you go the whole 7 route, but I think she had time to go off and explore and learn about herself and live a life, and I think that's kind of what he needs to do. I'd either say he's gone rogue, either gone back to the co-op Malat, or he's just becomes whatever the future's version of a travel blogger is. Going
traveling with Elnor.
Elnor the backpacker.
Yeah.
Or maybe like a
Yeah.
food critic in that era, you
Yeah.
know, 'cause he'd be very blunt about whether he likes it or not. So yeah, something like that. Maybe
Eating
we
gak on
pitch that show
Rurapente.
idea. Travels with Elnor.
Yeah. Just eating some gak on Rurapente or something exciting like
Yeah.
that. You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Top it off with some Romulan ale.
There you go.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Yes.
Indeed. Elnor's is it Tan Kalak, the sword? Is that how you pronounce it? Do you remember?
Yeah. Tan Kalak. Yeah.
Tan Kalak, yeah. Is a really unique Romulan weapon. What kind of training did you need to do to use it? And were there any mishaps on set where, you know, you might have, I don't know, accidentally hit yourself or somebody else inadvertently or anything like that went on?
There were a couple of accidents on set. Season 2, the breakout scene right before I get shot, where we had to like override the I'm just going to call it computer system for lack of a better word. And I kicked someone through a panel of glass. I got cracked right in the, like we had one shot because we only had one screen that I could kick someone through. And rehearsal went fine and everything. And then during the actual filming, I get clocked right in the face, like right before I do the kick.
Wow.
But if anything, it helped because the adrenaline kicked in and I'm like, all right, time to go. Bang.
So you really kicked him through the glass screen or whatever.
Yeah. I got him right.
Didn't hold back.
No, it was, I think it was was it a back kick, like a reverse heel kick, or I think maybe just a tape, which is just a front kick, full frontal. And he went flying and it looked amazing on set. I had to keep composure. When you see someone fly through a glass panel in front of your eyes, there is some kind of like shocking moment to it, but you obviously have to act like, yeah, that's what I do on every stunt.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. That was the Evan in me, but the Elnor in me was like, yeah, every day of the week, you know, twice a day on Sundays. That's how I roll. But in terms of the sword fight training, you know, I had no experience with that whatsoever. My like first day on set was which is actually my first day in Los Angeles as well. I go to set, I get handed a fake prop sword, and they were just like, this is going to be like your best friend all season. We're going to teach you how to wield the sword. So I was just going through like stances and movements and flows. And then, you know, we began sequence work. You know, some of the sequences were really elaborate and long. And, you know, we didn't get to use a lot of them. However, they're still very much ingrained in my memory. I have my tongue kalunk in the other room. My dad's stolen it from me and has claimed it as his own. So every now and again, I'll go in there and grab the sword and just have a little bit of a play with it, which is fun.
Take it on the road trip. I think it'll come in handy. I think if you get pulled over.
Is there a problem, officers? No.
Yeah. You really want to do this? Yeah. Choose to live. Yeah.
Choose to live. Famous last words.
Yeah. Exactly. So I guess with Picard and Elnor's relationship, Evan, that seemed like, I mean, I guess, you know, pre-Jack sort of coming on board, Jack Crusher, it was kind of like, you know, it was like you were like his adoptive son. And I guess just in terms of the dynamic there, what moments did you have on set that kind of really solidified that bond and, you know, for you and Mr. Sir Patrick Stewart?
Yeah, SPS, Peace Stew. I would honestly say the first episode of filming, we were all gathered around in Rios's ship, and the lights were really warm. The wig was really warm. I was sweating just because imposter syndrome had kind of kicked in at that point. You know, you're surrounded by all of these like veteran actors, and one of them is knighted. You know, and you grow up watching him on screen as Professor Xavier and, you know, Captain Picard. And then he just kind of like took me aside, not even like a come here sort of moment. I like went off away from everyone to get kind of air. in a very enclosed environment, and then he just kind of like waltzed over and he's like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Yeah, a little nervous." I didn't say anything else. He's like, I nearly said no to doing the show after we had started pre-production and we're about to head into production. And I was just kind of like, why? He's like, I was nervous. I was nervous about going back to this role and like what else I could do with it. I was nervous about how the fans would receive everything. And then I was just kind of like, well, how did you get through it? And he's like, I just kind of said, well, fuck it. Which I found out is a technique he does right before a scene that he cares about a lot. He just kind of throws it away. He's just like, well, fuck it. And then we'll just get the job done. So that I would say was our initial kind of bonding moment with each other. And then the episode with him and I on Vashti was another kind of like bonding moment. But it felt like a father and son kind of thing. But at that point in time, I think it was like, almost like the teenager in Elnor's character kind of coming out, being like that rebelliousness of being respectful and understanding that he's this figure of authority that I've looked up to all the time, like my whole life. But at the same time, he did kind of like leave me for 10 years. So there's that kind of like almost like a parent coming back into the picture, into someone's life. So there was a lot of moments between him and I where I felt very much like a mentor. And I think Jack continued that. I think honestly, if Elnor and Jack sat down for some drinks, they would be feeling the same way. There we go.
Rose for life. Yeah.
What a wonderful pair. They look like they're drinking something fruity too, which is definitely what he'd be drinking. But yeah, I think they would have a lot in common and share the same, I guess, opinion of this character and this figure in their life.
Yeah.
Nice.
Excellent. If Star Trek Legacy, I mean, obviously it's, there's a lot of hope out there in the Star Trek community that at some point in the future we might see it. But if that were to actually happen, and hypothetically speaking, if we saw Elnor, say, taking up some kind of perhaps chief of security type role for Captain Seven or whatever, on the Enterprise G, do you feel he'd need a little bit more experience or maturity before taking on such a role? Or do you think he'd be able to kind of slip right into it quite effortlessly?
That is a really good question. I think it would depend on where we pick back up on these characters and these stories with Legacy. Yes, and no, I think he'd need to grow into the role. I don't think this is something he could just walk into and be, I've arrived. I think he would be making like a lot of mistakes and probably critical errors that would cost people their lives. I don't know. I feel like the Hughes death really gave him like a lot of perspective. Also, I know he killed someone who kind of like got in the way, but that was someone he wasn't really trying to protect. So I think he would take everything a little bit too personally. And a person who's that kind of emotional, I don't know if that's the best role for him. I don't know if you guys would agree, but
I think you'd need to do it a bit like how they did Geordie on Next Generation. So in the sense that we didn't start episode 1 of Encounter at Farpoint with Geordie as the chief engineer.
Yes.
He started off. He started off as like the con officer or whatever it was, for the first season, and he didn't actually advance to chief of engineer until season 2 or whatever it was. So I think that progression would probably be best played out if you had Elnor as like, one of the head security officers on board the G, and there'd be another person who was the chief of security, and then maybe sometime in season 2, there was an away mission and the chief of security got killed, and then Elnor had to kind of step up into the role or something like that. But just to be able to see at least, him, earn it, progress into that role, perhaps.
Yeah, I feel like I don't even know if nepotism really exists in that time, but I feel like either way, him and Jack would have a lot to prove, and I'd rather see the growth into that role as opposed to just being put into it.
And if it sort of went, like, I guess, down like a path of coming away from Starfleet for a while, as you said, Evan, and building up a bit of experience in a rogue sort of role, and then coming back maybe on call for like special missions, or maybe being brought in for certain episodes where they needed some undercover operatives, or to get access to some some darker, shadier parts of the galaxy. That might sort of lean into that a little bit, perhaps.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a very vast world there that needs exploration. I think that they've played around with it a lot, but I just don't think it's to the extent. I'm very interested to see how the Academy show turns out. I've heard really good things. And, I don't think any other show's been announced really that's starting production or about to be started. And that could very much have something to do with the whole Skydance Paramount merger, but I just want to keep
100%.
I want to keep seeing this franchise just continue to grow and blossom. And, I know, and I'm one of them occasionally, like I do shit on some of the series, but
you're not alone.
The one that's a number.
Starting with 3, ending in 1.
The thing is though, and I, not a fan of it, but if it makes you feel something, it's done its job, whether you hate it or whether you love it. It's as long as they keep experimenting in this world and trying different things. Like, I know a lot of people were like not happy that they were going to make an animated comedy about Star Trek. I know I remember at the time it was a very divided thing. I thought it was going to be fucking awesome, and I was right. But they just got to keep doing that. Stagnation's never good. It's how franchises go to die. If they could get the showrunners from Andor on a Trek series, I think that would be like just
Andor, I think I enjoyed Andor, but Andor, I think, was only good after episode 7. There was a lot of Andor was very slow in the lead up to the whole Gorman massacre. I think it was well written, but I think I watched Rogue One the other night, having just finished watching Andor, and the first takeaway I got from watching. Sorry to quickly jump into Star Wars stuff for a second.
We're crossing over now.
We're
crossing over. Do this.
I'll make it very brief. Is that Rogue One got so much action and so much pace in it. It really actually shone. It actually made Andor seem so slow by comparison. And I thought it just needed a little few more blaster battles and a few more, space dogfights, and not so many characters talking in the shadows, whispering about.
My question is, though, if it was a Trek series, would you have said there's too much talking in it, or it's too slow paced and not enough?
No, I think I would have had the same opinion. I mean, I enjoyed it. I just think it was. I just think it needed a little bit of light and shade. It was just all. It was just all too many characters whispering in corridors about schemes that didn't happen until sort of 5 episodes down the track. It just needed a little bit more, a bit more action and excitement to sort of spice up the all of the scheming that was going on. But anyway, we'll digress. David, you got the next question. Yes, it's you.
Bring but say bringing it back to Section 31, I think that would have been an excellent vehicle for Elnor, where it does sort of, have that that rogue element, and it's familiar. It's a familiar and beloved character, and I think that something like that would have really worked. It could have been, I don't know how would it work from the time zones with Michelle Yeoh. I think they're a little bit apart, but I don't know. It doesn't have to have Michelle Yeoh in it, but I think something like that where you're drawing on that familiarity and you've got the opportunity to explore outside the box that you would normally be a little bit restricted within the confines of a standard series. This is something to sort of explore in a bit of a different way and also grow the character. So I think Section 31 could have been a very good vehicle for an Elnor.
I think the problem with Section 31, and I'm going to compare it again to another Star Wars thing, because I honestly think Star Wars have made the same mistakes and created the same kind of like successes at the same time. I immediately was just like, feels like the Han Solo movie, but just in the Trek universe. I'm like, this is not gonna. I just don't think it's gonna be executed well. I think they're trying to think about what people want too much, and like what a younger, different audience wants. And I think the thing that people fail to realize is that good writing and good storytelling is going to be revered and welcomed and accepted and spoken about regardless of what it is. So I think when you've got too many cooks in the kitchen and too many people giving their opinion and honestly going off of an algorithm, this is also a problem I see in most modern stuff that's made. If you are just going off of data, you're not going to make anything interesting.
Not the character, the actual information.
No. If you bring it back data, it's a hit. But look, it was a swing and a miss. It was a good swing. Hopefully the next one is a home run for him.
Yeah,
Here.
for sure. So I guess if we talked about Jack Crusher before, if Elnor and Jack Crusher went on an away mission together, you've got a bit of Brotown happening there. Given their different personalities, what would you think that mission could be, and how do you think their dynamic would play out? Between the two, because they're obviously different dynamics, but they kind of, I think they could work really well together.
I think it would be Jack not wanting to mess with the Prime Directive and Elnor being like, no, almost like people who are at an odds constantly, but then at the end of it, I honestly imagine every mission either being we leave each other, find each other again, help each other out somehow, and then end up shaking hands. But it's the same thing every time, because I feel like they're both got strong personalities. They're both different and the same. I don't know. It would, anything involving them would kind of just be like brothers who have grown up arguing and fighting with each other and aren't quite at the really good mates again stage. Like that's how I'd kind of view their relationship, no matter where they are or what they're doing, and would honestly have a go at each other, but as soon as someone else comes for them, it's like they have each other's back. I don't know. That would be my that would be what I see happening quite a lot. Either that or just no, I don't think there would be any jealousy realistically between any of them. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Two sides of a similar coin, if I could use that phrase, maybe a little bit like that.
I think there's definitely some odd couple style humor that would come out of the relationship, with Elnor's kind of sort of childish naivety and maybe Jack being a little bit more worldly wise or whatever. I think I can see Jack introducing Elnor to a few concepts and a few maybe some Orion slave girls or something perhaps, or that could be a good interesting and somewhat comedic road to go down.
Yeah, I'd like to see them go to Riser together. That would be interesting.
Get up to all sorts of trouble there. Yeah.
Just make sure they take their Horgon with them or whatever
the idol
to show to achieve Jamaharon or whatever. So going off another little hypothetical or what if we saw a Star Trek episode which saw Elnor having Q's powers for a day.
Oh, look at that.
What do you think the first thing Elnor would do? And why? If he had Q's powers for the day.
Well, I mean,
it's a pretty good get up there.
Honestly, this is going to sound like really, I don't know, heartfelt or whatever, but I guess meet his parents. He knows nothing about them. Q can, Q's time travel is not an issue. Kind of bringing back the dead's not an issue. I don't know if that, I don't know what the limit is to just having powers for a day, but I think it would be to just find out who his parents are and meet them, because we know nothing about them. We know that he's a Romulan. He's an orphan. We don't know why he has to be like, and I've been thinking about this for a long time. He has to be have parents that were of some importance. And I spoke to Michael Chabon about this when I think after 2023, and I was just kind of like, what is his backstory? What did you imagine when you created this character? And I think he said, that obviously like the triage, but one of the parents was definitely a Romulan politician, kind of senator sort of thing that wanted to work towards this kind of alliance with the Federation because of obviously the disaster that was going to follow. And then they just ended up dying. So I think somehow genetically helping people has been instilled through him via his parentage. And, obviously these are fictional characters and stuff, but I'd just like to see where he came from. So that would be, nothing silly with Q's powers. I don't know if he would try and organize them getting saved from the timeline, and then that would obviously alter the timeline to where he's not an orphan or a co-op Malat. And then I don't know, time travel, right? It's tricky.
It's a tricky beast to deal with. Yes,
I still don't understand it, and there's 10 different times of probably restore Romulus. Time travel is just confusing. Even the Back to the Future thing still, to this day, it makes the most sense to me, but it also doesn't make any sense. Also another sci-fi thing I'm bringing up that's not Star Trek. Sorry.
That's all right. We're all sci-fi fans here. We can cope with a bit of cross promotion.
Yeah, there's room for
we swing in different ways. It's all good. Yeah. So I guess if we go back to kind of like a legacy sort of theme here, Evan, if say Elnor joined the cast and he's got Captain Seven and First Officer Raffi on the Enterprise G.
My mums.
Yeah, exactly. Your mama bears. Do you think? How do you think that? I guess the close personal history there could affect some of the command decisions, given that there was a more protective dynamic, family dynamic on the La Serena. Versus this more structured, okay, now I've got to worry about 400 or 500 other lives on a starship if you were Captain Seven, and how that might sort of play out with the dynamic with Elnor.
I think there'd be a lot of reprimand. I think the thing that strikes me about Elnor, especially when it comes to those two lovely ladies in the screen there, is that he always wants to do right by them. I honestly looking at it now, I think it would be the best ship in all of Starfleet. Just look at it. You just need Jack, and it's kind of complete. You've got the quad. Yeah, look, that's the thing that I was
Awesome,
talking about
awesome.
earlier with Elnor. I don't know if he could handle the pressure of being responsible for that many people. And every time there's a loss, I don't know how he'd deal with it. So yeah, that's also one of the interesting things about if there's a legacy show, where does this character fit? Is it in line with what we've seen before? Where do you go from there? How do you progress more? But that's that would be for the writers, and then if they came to me and they spoke to me about it and it resonated with me, I'd be on board. But if I honestly, this is before, when people said if there was a legacy show, like, would you be on it? I say yes. But now I would only do that if it felt right, because it is about fan service, but also I don't believe in just bringing back a character to have the character there as a face. There needs to be growth and change there. Like, there's always growth and change in all of us.
Needs to be meaning
Indeed.
behind it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, it's sort of interesting because, like, for example, in season 3, we saw the dynamics in the captains, and I can't remember the captain that was the. Help me out, Nick. Shaw, that's it. Yeah, like Shaw was sort of like initially kind of came across like a bit of an asshole, but he actually cared about his ship and he stuck by the rules. And this was in great contrast to, say, Picard and Riker, the way they were kind of just like, they kind of look like friggin' cowboys. And I was kind of siding a bit with Shaw initially in this, and sort of I was definitely seeing a bit of distance between Riker and Picard, but it sort of shows that different command style and responsibility versus the family connection, I guess. Yeah,
I mean, you also see that in contrast with like TNG compared to District 9. The differences in the captain in Cisco and Picard there. Like, I think that's the interesting thing. I think it's about getting the right people for the right captain. It's like gloves or a pair of shoes. They have to fit. They have to fit you, otherwise it's just uncomfortable. So yeah, who knows? Maybe Elnor wouldn't be a good fit on Seven's ship. Don't know. Well, we may never know.
I think he would be a good fit eventually. What I would enjoy being witness to is that growth.
Yeah.
Seeing him absolutely shitting himself when he first started, completely unsure of himself, not confident at all, making mistakes in season 1, and then obviously growing into a much more mature character and more seasoned and responsible. And I think seeing that character growth would be, highly entertaining.
Oh, most definitely. It would be comedic too, because they made him funny. I don't know how, but they made him say some funny stuff that just, you could just see the comedy just come. I don't know. Like, it's definitely the writers. It's not me. I'm not looking at this being like, how can I make it funny? Just do everything the same. So there would be some very interesting, funny moments, I think, on board and during this journey of growth and change.
Now we're talking about cross-platform stuff just before, and here's an interesting question for you. Which of these characters would be the most effective sparring partner for Elnor, and what unique challenges would they bring to his Romulan fighting style? And the choices we have are Michonne,
okay,
from The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Legolas,
my brother
from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Space Legolas.
Yeah.
Gamora from Guardians of the Galaxy. Or Luke Skywalker.
I mean, that's the hardest one there. Come on.
From Star Wars.
That's the hardest one. That's unbeatable. You got to be able to get near him. That I mean, like I'm going to go into some Star Wars lore. Lightning isn't just from the Siths. Like there's a different colored lightning when you become more attuned with the light side of the Force. And after Return of the Jedi, he's capable of doing that. And we're watching. That's a picture from Return of the Jedi. He's done. Elnor's done. The easiest one would be Michonne. It doesn't matter if she's good with a blade. She's only human, and she's fighting zombies that are like either really slow or So that's a sweep. Legolas, it depends whether he's using the bow or his dual daggers. But I also think there would just be a moment where we both think we're elves from the opposite side of Mirkwood. Gamora is an assassin, an enhanced assassin. So I would think the bottom two, I'm getting swept. Legolas, even it depends on the terrain, and it depends on what weapon he's wielding. And then Michonne's just done. I'm sorry, but that's that's like,
Walker bait.
That's like Jordan. That's like Michael Jordan, sweeping the playoffs. With her, no shade. Love her character, but yeah, that's choose to live. Like she's gonna die.
Yeah. Okay.
Choose your death.
Yeah.
So the final choice being,
I would like Luke. To be honest, I would learn the most
Luke?
if I could get a lightsaber.
Yeah, if Luke wins.
Yeah, I mean, like his father's like one of the best duelists in all of Star Wars. Sorry, and the person who trained him was Yoda, who was also a master duelist as well as a high Force wielder. And then Obi-Wan Kenobi destroyed General Grievous, who is an alien that learn all of these dark side forms. And like Mace Windu battled Mace Windu once, because Mace Windu's style is very much attuned into the dark side of the Force, even though he's a Jedi. And Grievous started learning the form while they were dueling, and so he legged it, Mace Windu, and refused to battle him ever again in case he learned that form. So he's just got a better array, and I think I'd be on par with Gamora as an assassin. So Luke, I would have the most to learn from Luke. He'd be the best sparring partner. Yeah.
Nice.
And I love Mark Hamill. So I love Mark Hamill. He's the best Joker, in my opinion.
Oh, you've met Mark?
No. I just really admire his work.
Oh.
Yeah. Outside of Star Wars as well, like his voice acting is incredible.
He does a good Harrison Ford impression too. I've noticed. He's pretty skilled there.
He does. Yeah.
He's the Fire Lord in Avatar: Last Airbender. The series. Yeah. Another favorite show of mine.
So I guess if we were kind of, yeah, indeed. I didn't know that part actually. Good. So just in terms of, I guess, if we put into the favorite captains in focus here, and we sort of took maybe Picard out of the mix because there's probably a little bit of bias there, and we kind of had a look at the remaining captains. Who would be your favorite, and what kind of makes them?
Cisco after he loses the hair, and he gets the goatee. Kirk, because it's Kirk. Janeway, I think you're talking about Elnor, right? Not me.
No, just you. No, for you.
Okay,
Evan. Yeah, just
me?
what's your favorite? Yeah.
Honestly, it would. Okay, so we're gonna get rid of Picard. Okay, so it would go probably Kirk, Cisco, Janeway, Pike. I'm not really a fan of the other two.
Moving right along. Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah, but that would be the order. Kirk's, shoot from the hip.
Yeah.
Sisko's like the anti-Picard, and Janeway is like, I think, almost like a better version of Picard in a way. Controversial.
Yeah. Controversial.
Nick, throwing it to you, who would be your favorite, like in terms of like a favorite captain out of the group there?
If I can choose from any of them, obviously Evan was had to omit Picard for obvious reasons. Look, I don't think I can't go past Jean-Luc Picard, really. I think. I think obviously Next Generation was my first Star Trek love. It's what I started with. It's what I grew up with, or whatever. So I think I'd have to go with old Sir Pat.
Great choice.
Yeah, I'd probably go with Sisko. I kind of like the fact that he's a bit of a strange cat, like as an actor and as a character. But he kind of like, he really is very emotional and emotive in some of the themes that he's dealing with and the way he sort of conveys that. And he's had some fantastic moments, and I think it's some really powerful episodes. I think Picard's also a standout, and but I think he can get a little bit sort of I don't know, sometimes a bit flat in the speech area. But I think Sisko just is so passionate about stuff, and he's a badass, when it comes to Starfleet captains, and doesn't always do it by the book. Yeah,
no,
so he'd be my choice.
Goes rogue.
Yeah,
we love it when captains go rogue, don't we?
Yeah, Rogue One. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
Back to Rogue One. Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. How many? There's always, if ever there's talk of the Prime Directive, they're going to break it for some reason. And every time the captain decides to go, right, we're going to break the Prime Directive here, you go, ooh, we're going to break the Prime Directive, goody, it's almost like, Yeah. Yes, absolutely. We've kind of covered this in a roundabout way. If there was going to be a Star Trek Legacy series, what role do you see Elnor playing, and how would you see him develop next? I mean, we've spoken about whether he would be like in a security type role, and I think you also said that you sort of see him going a bit rogue and going a bit off reservation, so to speak.
Yeah, the travel.
The travel. Yeah. Is there anything else you just quickly touching on that? Anything else you see him kind of getting up to?
To be
love
honest,
interest.
We pitched a show like 3 years ago. I think it was like right after season.
Oh, was this the animated one?
Yeah. And it's him, leaving Starfleet, going back to Vashti, and it's just been like decimated, and it kind of dives more into what the Romulans were doing with this Borg technology, how the power factions in this empire are now divided, his lineage and parentage. We try to cover all of those. We brought the Gorn back, but our Gorn were super enhanced with Borg technology. It was pretty interesting.
That's a dangerous combo.
Yeah, it is, and it was just kind of like what's
particularly if they're the Strange New Worlds Gorn, that would be quite formidable, as opposed to the one that
Barney the dinosaur one.
Yeah. No, well, we can go the OG. No. But yeah, it was just an interesting look at the universe, but also not from the perspective of Starfleet Academy. It was going to be a focus on, I guess what happens, what we see in the world now, whenever there's a kind of like political issue and a government kind of collapses, and you see, who's left to kind of take the scraps of everything and consolidate power. So it was going to be a very interesting story. Kurtzman and Aaron looked through everything. We sent it through to Paramount, and then the strike happened, which is fantastic timing. But
yeah,
it could be a thing worth revisiting. There's so much stuff you can tell with this character in the animated space, because he essentially is a character out of animation.
Did
Anyway.
did you foresee that in a style like Prodigy or more like Lower Decks?
Honestly, more in line with like Attack on Titan,
Okay.
which is like a Studio Mir, or I can't remember the other studios over there that we were looking at, or even like a Powerhouse Animation. They do they've done like Blood of Zeus, Kong Skull Island, Tomb Raider, Devil May Cry. They've done a ton of animation. So look, you never know, but that's kind of where we saw him, the direction like we wanted him to go in. Even if I went on Legacy, I would be begging to be like, okay, can I do Legacy, but can we also have this spin-off thing? Just delay it by however many seasons the show goes for, and then we can build on the character more, and then focus on, we see where he is on the present. Let's see who he really is. I feel like you don't know yourself until you understand your past, your family history and stuff, because you don't know how you got wound up where you are in the first place. So yeah,
Indeed,
we'll see.
Fingers crossed. In some ways, if they, it could be more interesting. Like if Legacy did end up happening in a couple of years' time or something, and you ended up doing like a time jump. So like obviously when Picard season 3 finished, and if the show had been greenlit then and there, it literally would have picked up where Picard season 3 ended. But if you were to do it further down the road, you could pick it up sort of like 3 or 4 years down the track sort of thing in terms of, because that's sort of how in some respects that's kind of how they did Strange New Worlds, because when Strange New Worlds season 1 started, the Enterprise under Pike had already basically done a 5-year mission. Like what we're seeing now in Strange New Worlds is their second 5-year mission. Obviously, with those short treks and everything, we saw little scenes like Spock coming on board the Enterprise as a very green ensign and everything. All that stuff happened with Vina on the planet with the Telosians and everything. All that had already happened in their first 5-year mission. So we've jumped into Strange New Worlds already kind of halfway through, and you could probably do the same thing with Legacy. It's like we come into the crew and see how the Enterprise G is operating, 5 years after the events of Star Trek Picard, something like that.
That'd probably be the way to do it, I would say. I mean, who knows? Hopefully Skydance, with the merger and Kurtzman and everything, like who knows what's going on now. I just want them to announce more shows. I just want to see more stuff. So hopefully, even if it's not Legacy, hopefully it's something.
Yeah, I don't think anything's going to be a greenlit until the whole merger and acquisition thing is kind of settled.
Yeah,
I would be surprised if we're going to hear anything announced. And I think, and to be honest, I think what is it? What's Kurtzman's company called again? Secret Hideout. Yeah, I think Secret Hideout are kind of probably a little bit on notice by Skydance, and it's like, okay, if you guys want your contract renewed, we want Legacy. We want you to pitch, shows that the fans are going to embrace, and they're a little bit kind of, okay, like, well, whether we renew your contract or not is going to be a little bit dependent on what you're serving up on the dinner plate, so to speak.
Yeah, well, it might end up being less shows but longer seasons or longer series. Like who knows? I mean, we could talk in theory all day with what they're planning, but like none of us know. I just hope Academy does well, so they don't see this as some. I don't want them to make any more films. I'll be honest. I don't want to see another J.J. Abrams big.
Another Zach Quinto and Chris Pine movie or whatever. Yeah.
No, what's the point? If anything, go young TNG. Cast what's his name? He played young Professor X.
Oh,
let's get a young. Like let's if we're gonna shoot, let's just try something different, or let's tell a completely new story. I don't know. I just don't. something's got to. It's weird because a lot of people talk bad on what Secret Hideout's done. They made Prodigy, they made Lower Decks, 5 seasons of Discovery, Strange New Worlds is pretty successful. So, I mean, if you look at the evidence, we've seen a very different kind of Star Trek than what was prevalent in the early 2000s, even, or like the 90s. 80s. Yeah. Very, what's the word? Middle answer I just gave.
No, it's a balanced answer.
Where are we at with questions? Is it my turn or yours, David? I'm trying to look at my list of talking points.
Are we doing segments or are we doing questions? I can keep going with questions.
Yeah, let's just we might as well keep going with questions.
That. Yep. So I think, like, in terms of, say, and this probably ties into what we were just talking about. Evan, I guess, coming from a younger generation to, say, Nick and myself, what do you think draws the new fans to Star Trek today, and kind of how well do you think that, I guess, the shows balance, keeping the long-term fans happy versus having the franchise going towards a slow death, if I could put it that way? What do you sort of think? What's the right balance there, and how do you think that works?
I think.
I sense the conflict within you.
Fuck it, I'll be blunt.
Just do it. Just say it.
And this is a problem with, in my opinion, all TV at the moment. Everyone entered this streaming, this streaming kind of thing with the understanding of, we had all of these big stars that are now available to us, that were doing movies, that are now going to be doing TV shows. People would go to the movies to go see them. They're going to go watch this series now because this person is in it. The difference between an hour-and-a-half movie and a TV show is you see these things every week. So it doesn't, if it's an hour and a half of a good actor in a bad film, I'm still going to enjoy it. If I'm seeing this person for 10 weeks or 20 episodes and it's not good, all of a sudden I'm not going to be interested in that actor. That's my opinion. So if I were them, get rid of any name actors, hire veteran people that are well respected and well known in the industry or just in their craft. Patrick Stewart, how he got the job. It's not like he really did anything of note. I mean, when he did Dune, the director didn't even like how he looked. You can't cater to an old audience and a young audience. It's just too much. It's a different perspective. You can't do this thing. You can't be in the middle. You really can't. You have to let the creator or the creative, you have to back their vision, even if it doesn't align with the rules of what you're trying to do. Star Trek's rules are: be a mirror to society, right? Show a hopeful future, show a better future, show how humanity at its very peak, how great it could be, right? You can pretty much implement that in any way, shape, or form across any medium. The thing where these shows and these films are dying is that they're like, oh, okay, now we're going to cater to this demographic and then a little bit for this demographic and a little bit for this demographic. How you get rid of that?
In trying to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody.
You're pleasing no one. Make one thing for them, make a new thing for someone else. It's as simple as that. It doesn't matter if it's not in the budget. Then don't be sitting there wondering, why are we not captivating a young audience? Like, the perfect example of how to captivate a young audience, honestly, is to take the piss out of yourself, because look at what Lower Decks did. They made it funny. They poked fun of the fans of the actual show itself, but it had heart. It was actually entertaining stories. And that's what happens when you let a creator do their thing without got one producer saying we need to focus on this, and another producer saying we need to focus on that. Like when there's too many cooks in the kitchen, the food is shit.
Which is why I have hope for Tawny's live action comedy, because she's such a hardcore Star Trek fan.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that are going, nah, don't want. What's this talk about a live action Star Trek comedy? This is going to be terrible, and you hear people immediately dismissing it. But it's like, I actually think I have hope for it, because I know how big a Star Trek fan she is.
Yeah.
And with all of her work as Mariner on Lower Decks, bringing that, and it's clear that she's a solid writer from what I believe. So I actually think this could potentially work quite well. Like, if it's, I actually have confidence that that she'll do a decent job.
I totally agree. I think she's got a very distinctive voice. I think she understands comedy. I think she understands I think she understands the lore behind everything. And you know what? If people are like, yeah, but that's comedy specific and things like that. If you want to do something that's unique and also feels the same way that can cater to a large audience, I give you For All Mankind. That could have been one of the best Trek series of all time. It's by the old guard. That knows what he's doing. So it's just like, where is the Khan series would have been a great show. You really have to take risk, I think, in order to get reward. Otherwise, you're just playing it safe, and playing it safe never helps anyone. Yeah, that didn't sound too harsh, did it?
No. Look, it's a double-edged sword, because obviously it depends. Sometimes when done well, it can be really good. In the case of something, obviously Hollywood, whether it be TV or cinema, likes a sure thing. And with sometimes like for example, Top Gun Maverick, I think that was handled really, really well. Like, it was a good film. It wasn't sort of just done for the sake of, nostalgia, and, even though the story was obviously somewhat ripped off of Star Wars, I thought it was done decently, and obviously, but there are other takes that you can, get franchises just doing things for the sake of, like the Indiana Jones franchise, where they've just, dug up Harrison Ford, in Dial of Destiny, which was, really not a great use of the character, and wasn't really handled particularly well, just to try to get that dollar, that nostalgic dollar from fans. So in some ways, yes, it can on the rare occasion be done well, but the large part of time, I think it's very difficult to really be able to recapture that lightning in a bottle that happened first time around.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just need to reinvent the wheel every time. It's still the wheel at the end of the day, but everything goes through a lot of levels of people. So what could have started off as a really good idea and a really good concept, by the time it's even filming or being, released, it's not the thing it started out wanting to be.
I mean, if we go back in time, like TNG, when that first came out, was probably a bit of a clash of cultures with the traditional original series fans.
Yeah.
And, that took a few seasons to really find its mark. In fact, it was probably hated, crossing over to other things like Battlestar Galactica that had a similar thing. I mean, you had your original Battlestar Galactica fans from the 70s/80s. Don't mention Galactica 1980, by the way. And, and the new series that came out, the reimagined one, that really hit its mark. And it really, I think, was very successful. And I think it sort of, it reinforces that point you raised, Evan, about taking risk, and also don't try to please everyone with the same product. You've kind of got to have maybe your distinct products for different things. I'm probably a bit of a fence sitter where I'd kind of like to have the one does all approach, which I don't think kind of works or is realistic. But I think if you've got only a few shots at some series, like 2 or 3 concurrently running series, choose your marks really well. Try to cater those, to those bespoke audiences, give it a rip. Because if we just keep doing the same old, your fan base will eventually just die, and that's not what anyone really wants to see.
I mean, it does seem in theory that they might be doing that a little bit with Academy, because obviously you've got the show, primarily the cast obviously being, first year university students. So people who are, in their late teens or early 20s as your primary cast. But then you've also got, your seasoned actors, Holly Hunter, you've got Paul Giamatti, you've got Robert Picardo coming back as the Hollow Doctor and everything from Voyager to make the traditional fans happy. So it does seem like there's at least potential in that as a kind of a, tick all the boxes kind of show. It just depends how close how obviously this is a follow on from Discovery. I'm hoping they kind of depart from Discovery a bit and go and take on its own flavor rather than trying to just be a Discovery Part 2.
I hope there's not as much exposition. I would rather see the emotion and the traumatic responses and everything than hear them. I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on about.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the next question. Well, here's a quick one. What's your favorite starship design across all of Star Trek? Have you got a favorite starship?
I mean, I like the Romulan bird of prey. I think that's a badass ship, but could just be. Look, I'm just going to say my favorite ship's La Sirena because it actually has personal meaning to me. But the Romulan ships, the birds of prey,
like the Warbird, or
the Warbird,
Mm-hmm.
It's just a sexy
ship.
It
is a badass, sexy ship. Yeah, you're right.
Because you had a couple of Warbirds too. You had like the traditional one we've seen in Next Generation, and then that's the Derridex class, I think. And then you also had the Veldor class, which was a bit of it was in Nemesis, I think, from memory, and it was kind of like an updated design.
I'm gonna tell you exactly which one I like. All right, I'm getting up my phone right now. I apologize if I look. I'm gonna keep engaging with you.
That's all right.
It doesn't look like I'm being rude because I'm not.
We've got the brick wall behind you. It's all good. Yeah, no worries. We're getting the Pink Floyd vibe. Yeah. What about you, Nick? Have you got
the B-type Warbird? I'm just looking at what it's called.
Warbird.
The Derridex.
Yep. With the big open
ships.
section in the middle of the hull. Yeah,
and the nice tail thing at the back and the wings. Have.
Look, there was in every episode of Next Generation, whenever you saw these bastards decloak in front of the Enterprise D, you would, you'd get a shiver. They were imposing ships.
It was like twice the size of a Galaxy class. It was huge when it sort of first was revealed, and I think was it in Neutral Zone? I think, Nick, the first episode when we saw that
episode of season 1 of Next Gen. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I also remember it from.
Sorry, the first episode, the final episode. I meant the last episode of the season. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was also cool to see them, when they were sort of decimating the Founders' Homeworld, or what they thought was the Founders' Homeworld was it the Dyer's Cast? And you had like a fleet of them and the Cardassian Galor class or something like that, Kelvin class, I think it was. And it was just awesome to see the firepower from those things. It was just, just within seconds destroying the crust of a planet. It was like, whoa.
Yeah.
They did really well taking inspiration from the Roman Empire. Like, honestly, hats off to hats off to them. Hats off to the creators. That's when doing something and executing on it well shows.
Yeah. Cool. What about earliest memory of Star Trek, Evan? I think for me, like I remember as a kid in the 70s, I watched an episode of Star Trek which saw the Planet Killer, which looked like this gigantic space worm, and it had a colourful centre, and the Enterprise was kind of getting sucked into it by the looks of things. But what would be your sort of first, like your first memory of Star Trek that you would have watched as a kid?
There's some mixed ones. So the film Search for Spock was like, I don't know, because mum, look, to be honest, growing up, like it was always on reruns and everything like that, but mum had the old VHSs.
Mm.
The old VHS.
Yeah, so we would I'm throwing mum under the bus here, but we would cycle through every other day either Star Trek, Star Wars, Pulp Fiction, or like Disney's Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, or Hercules.
Yep.
So yeah, I would say it's the TOS films. Although I've got a really vivid memory of like the Greek. I can't remember what episode this is. The Greek gods are in it in the TOS.
Oh,
do you know
who mourns for Adonis? I think it was.
Yeah. And then I've got weird memories of like Worf in the Sherwood Forest. So it's not like scenes or moments, and it's the same thing with every other. It's like it is scenes, but it's like still shots almost. It like feels like it's never quotes. It's never anything like. I couldn't tell you when I first heard the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, or even like Luke, I am your father, or what's the line in Pulp Fiction?
That whole rant that Jules gives.
You know, like
just before he's about to shoot someone.
Royale would cheat. Like I don't remember
Yeah.
I don't remember the first time I ever heard those lines. They've just because I'm clearly too young. Sorry, Mum. I was just too young. Just throwing her under the bus, showing like a 3-year-old R-rated movies, but they've just always been embedded in my memory. You know, if I could do anything, it would be to erase all of this cool shit that I've seen and watch it now for the first time to understand the impact that it has on me now, because it's clearly had an impact on like what I want to do in my life, even if it was just like subconsciously. So. You know, maybe I'd watch it now, all that stuff now, and be like, you know what, I don't like acting. I don't want to do anything in film and TV. I'm going to be a scientist or an engineer or a doctor. But because I watched everything so young, I'm like, no, I want to go on the stuff where it looks like it's world building instead of actually contributing to the world in, you know, saving lives or creating something that, you know, helps the environment or anything like that. So yeah, those are that's my TOS movies are probably my earliest.
Okay. I think my first memory was watching like similar VHS, you know, situation, but Wrath of Khan, I think was my first.
What's the one where he's wearing boots and he's on a mountain, Spock?
Is it Star Trek 5?
What does God need with a space?
Yeah, that's Star Trek 5. Yes.
Yeah, I've also got that in my memory.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, have you seen the trailer that came out for the new season of Strange New Worlds, which obviously starts in July? Have you happened to have caught that, Evan?
I have not. I've actually been very off the grid at the moment. I've been living on my laptop but doing work. We're working on getting funding for a show, a TV show done in like the next like 3 to 4 months. So if the rest of financing comes through, we'll be off the ground with that. So I've been doing a lot of boring paperwork and listening to podcasts, funnily enough. Yeah.
Anyway,
so I haven't seen any trailer.
The reason I ask is because there was quite a lot of scenes in the trailer for the upcoming season, which seemed to showcase quite a lot of comedic moments in the upcoming season. And how do you feel about the amount of humor that they seem to be injecting into Star Trek, particularly Strange New Worlds. Do you think it's about right, or do you think it's a bit too much? Do you think we need to balance it out with a bit more drama and a bit more, social commentary stuff, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think, I haven't seen the trailer. I think they found their kind of niche with what they were wanting to create with this show, which is pay homage to the original series. And the original series had a great mixture of everything. But without watching the season, all you can hope for is that it doesn't become, it doesn't insist upon itself and it end up being almost like a caricature of what it's meant to be. That's when you run into these problems. So, see, like, why is Paul Wesley in this show? Yeah. Anyway.
But yeah,
It just
there seems to be a lot of like
something that needs to be like one episode of the season.
Yeah,
and that's the episode. That's the make it a two-parter. Who cares? But that needs to be one episode of the season. Where's everything
the
else?
oddball episode.
Yeah, exactly. Like how everyone talks about.
Because if you think about back in TNG days, where you had a season of 26 episodes in a season, and you might get one or two in the whole season, that was okay, because getting 2 comedy episodes out of a season of 26 is a lot lower percentage than getting, say 3 or 4 comedy episodes out of a season of 10 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 20% of the show, and that's only if the comedy goes for is only in like 2 of the episodes. Like, what if it's sprinkled through? I don't know. You need to find a right balance. But they seem to be doing a really good job with it anyway. So, I guess you just got to trust the creators. Does it make me from the stills of the trailer? Do I want to watch it? Yes. Will I be, being a fan, will I be overly judgmental and critical because I don't think it fits in with my idea of what it should be? Probably. Will I be wrong about it? Probably. Because opinions are just like assholes. Everyone has one. Right? Whoever farts the loudest doesn't make them right. So, look, if people enjoy it, and I'm sure I'll be entertained and I'll enjoy it, then they've done their job. I just hope it doesn't devolve into a thing where it's like the butt of a joke every time. I call that the Homer Simpson effect. So Homer Simpson used to be really an idiot, but a likable person. Now he's just a caricature of what he used to be. So he's a victim of his own success. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
We have a super thanks. Thank you, TARDIS, for
my boy. My guy.
Is he your mate?
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
What do I think the legacy of the character Elnor will be? I mean, he's the first Romulan in Starfleet, so he's hopefully the bridge of what I imagine would be hopeful unification of Vulcans and Romulans. That would be, the drop into the lake, or the first drop that eventually becomes the giant lake of whatever progression there is.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah. Safe answer.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. So maybe coming back to, say, I guess the structure of seasons and things. So Evan, do you prefer, more like a season filled with self-contained episodes, or maybe season long stories, or one where there's a continuous narrative within the Star Trek season. So I guess you got to pay off to the end of the season for the what is it, the box analogy, Nick?
The mystery box premise.
Yeah, so self-contained episodes versus, I guess, an arc and or a story that just gets like told for the whole duration of the season. What do you?
I don't like the whole. It's 8 episodes and it's a movie that you watch over 8 episodes. I don't think enough happens for things to be engaging, unless you. I don't know. It's hard. I think they can do both. I think you could do. Look, sci-fi storytelling changed as soon as I think it was Moffat or whatever his name came on to help.
Stephen Moffat.
Yeah, came on to help reboot Doctor Who. He essentially reinvented what is known as the big bad, and that is self-contained episodes. Stuff happens, but lurking in the background of the season is this ultimate big bad that we eventually meet and overcome. I think that is, in my opinion, classical storytelling, because you can do that throughout sci-fi, throughout fantasy. They did in Game of Thrones, with the White Walkers. It was told over a series. So I think it depends. I think with Strange New Worlds, I like episodic. I like that it's something a little different every time. With Discovery, I think the overarching storyline worked with them. I would prefer a 16 episode season where it's a mixture of both. I think 8 is too little, and I think 24 is way too long. And I think
I don't think people have the attention span to get, like, whenever now you see a show and it's got 22 episodes in a season, it's like, you just can't do it anymore. Like, obviously that used to be the standard, but I think it doesn't almost feel like, to me, you can get enough meat into a 10 episode season. But I think they used to do 12 or 13 episode seasons. That was a bit better. But I reckon somewhere between 13 and 16 is the Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But look, stuff's getting shorter and shorter. There are shows out there now that are like 4 episodes long.
Yeah,
shrinkflation.
Particularly out of the UK, they tend to do pretty short seasons over there.
Yeah, they do, but it seems to work with them. But then you look at that, like, I'm pretty sure Red Dwarf is it's like 12 episodes a season. I can't remember, but like certain things they do, it's their longer seasons, and it works. It just depends what it is. But like sci-fi, you need a little bit of length. How many episodes? I think The Expanse was like 14 episode seasons.
Yes.
Varied, I think.
Yeah. That's 13. There was certainly more than 10, I think. In that show.
Yeah.
And in the case of storytelling, do you think, when we get to not only episode duration but also like narratively speaking, do you think canon should ever be bent for the sake of really great storytelling in Star Trek? Where do you draw the line in terms of how rigidly canon should be adhered to?
I can hear the clogs ticking there. Yeah. It's a toughie, this one.
You want some like thinking music?
Yeah. Look, it's important because canon is really important because if you just rewrite the rules, then you're changing the game. That's not a good way either. The people go into something with an understanding of things. If it's a change of perspective, that's fantastic. But if you're just changing shit to change it, no, fucking keep it how it is. There's a reason why it's like.
And I know the writers do tend to complain that they tend to complain that there's so many, this 50, whatever it is, 50 something years or of Star Trek or whatever, and it's impossible to adhere to canon. But every time that I hear that said, it's like I could think of a plausible way around, when they say, this was broken because we just can't adhere to canon because there's so much canon and there's so many episodes, it can't be done.
Well, put
Yes,
it
it
this
can
way:
be
the,
done.
the Bible is what 1800 years old or whatever, and they remain canon to that one event. So why can't Star Trek? Why can't they adhere to it?
Mm.
We're getting religious now, but
It's possible. I think there's always more plausible ways. I think when canon is bent a bit too far, out of whack, I think there's always ways you go, or if they just made this little tweak, or just dropped an extra line of exposition in or something, you could easily get around it. I think, there's always ways around it, just with a simple explanation. I mean, for God's sake, it's science fiction. You can come up with a insert tech or insert mystical kind of, sciencey thing or whatever that'll get around it somehow,
100%. And the thing that really grinds my gears, but really grinded my gears, was the initial Klingons in Discovery, and everyone was like, "Those aren't Klingons," and it's like, you mean the people who they worked on in like the 80s and the 90s, and they didn't have the technology or the equipment or anything like that to create this look that they're able to create now? Like, things have to progress, but I do agree they have to progress and change and evolve in a way that doesn't compromise what we were just talking about. Because then, there's no rules, and when there's no rules, people don't like that.
But yeah, there's always ways around it. Like this I mean, this isn't really an example of canon being broken, but it's an example of how you can more easily explain something and get around it. Like when I first started watching the third season of Picard, and obviously you find out that Beverly Crusher's got a son, Jack Crusher, who's in his mid-20s. Or it's like, hang on a sec, it's like Beverly Crusher would have been like sort of 60, and like hang on, it's like, what? It's, you think, how does this work? But then I thought all you needed to do, because there was a little bit of something of like, hang on, how is this the case? But I thought like a perfect explanation would have been just a little. It would have taken 10 seconds to do as a line of dialogue. It's like when they were on I was about to say Na'vi. That's Avatar.
Different sci-fi.
The people in the people in Insurrection. What's the planet of people in Insurrection? The Fountain of Youth planet.
Yeah.
So someone in the comments will remind me the name of the planet. But anyway,
the people. I'm not gonna. Baku.
Baku.
So how on their planet, and remember, like, Riker shaved his beard off, and Worf started getting pimples, and Riker and Troy were kind of flirting with each other, and it was sort of like everybody's physiology was being rejuvenated and made more youthful. So all they needed in that context was Beverly to say a line saying, my reproductive capacity was brought back 15 years or something when we were on the Baku planet, and that little one occasion which we had a little bit of a fling, Jean-Luc, at Riker and Troy that night after Riker and Troy's wedding resulted in Jack Crusher. And it's like, I got that perfect explanation, Yeah, so it just something like that you can drop into the story to go, that is completely plausible, and you've completely explained, and I'm happy now.
I agree. It shouldn't be up to the fans to have to connect the dots too. Like, it just should be a thing that's considered. I mean, they have all of these experts on set anyway, making sure that things are, canon and aligned with everything. So, like, do the little extra bit,
Yeah, a little nod goes a long way, and they can also sort of say, they're from the north. that old chestnut that comes up a few times. In Star Trek.
that was a very simple explanation as to the differences in physiology in Romulans.
Yeah,
very simple explanation. They're from the north. One line of dialogue explains it, and you go, fair enough. It's sometimes still simple things like that, I think, go a long way to to making us happy rather than just
I agree.
completely bastardizing the Klingons in season 1 of Discovery. Should we move on to the we've got a little game show. Should we move on to the game show? Because I'm conscious of the time.
Let's give it
Let's do that. We've come up with a bit of a game show. And this is called Elnor's Ethical Exploits.
Oh, all right.
Your own graphic, everything.
So how this works is we're gonna tell you of a scenario, and we're gonna see how Elnor would respond to. So we're gonna give you hypothetical situations, and we have a 4-choice multiple choice responses, and tell us which one that you think Elnor would go with. Do you want to start us off?
I'll do the read. Yep, absolutely.
With the first one. Okay.
Yep. So first one is we're at a formal Starfleet banquet. Ambassador Cathar is boring the shit out of everyone with a lecture on gaseous anomalies. Suddenly, there's a loud fart ripping through a silent room, which perfectly punctuates his speech. What's Elnor's immediate reaction? So we've got A, looks directly at the ambassador and states, "I wasn't expecting a practical demonstration of gaseous anomalies, sir." B, closes his eyes and nods thoughtfully and says, "A spontaneous round of musical bows. Fascinating." C, turns to the table, grimaces slightly and declares, "Well, as they say on Earth, better out than in." And D, pulls out a tricorder, scans the air dramatically, and announces, "Curious, these gaseous anomalies have melted my frickin' tricorder." Which one would Elnor choose out of those 4 little chestnuts?
I think it's between A and C. I just like the way I'm going to go with A, just because I can really imagine him saying that, and
the practical demonstration.
Yeah, and being very honest with it too. Like he probably just thinks it's part of the speech or the lecture.
Yes. Yep. Oh,
nice.
Good. Nice one.
Next question, which we're calling Riker's risque holodeck surprise.
Right.
And
we said it 5 times fast.
Yes. And the question is, Elnor is looking for Commander Riker and accidentally walks into holodeck program 7 Alpha, Riser's relaxation rendezvous, which Riker clearly forgot to deactivate. The scene is utterly uninhibited and quite steamy. What does Elnor do? A, he barges in and declares, "Commander, I have your report, though this relaxation appears rather anatomically engaging." B, instantly turn eyes wide, then slowly back out, muttering, "The Kawat Malat does not cover this level of naked candor."
Oh my God! Yeah.
C, exit quickly, then gravely tell the computer, "Purge holodeck program 7 Alpha immediately for the sake of all life forms." And D, pause, then tell the computer, "Initiate solo riser relaxation program 7 Alpha for Elnor for research purposes."
Oh yeah, we're going with that one. We're going with that one. He's got to learn. The boy has to learn.
Has to learn. So,
yeah.
So you reckon D on that one?
Yeah, if we're at that point in where he's at in his life at that moment, yeah, we're gonna go with D. Yeah,
D it is.
He's gonna get more worldly experience.
Indeed, some solo time is always good.
Yes.
Yeah, we all need a bit of solo time sometimes. Okay, the next round is the Betazoid wedding attire. So the question is, Elnor's been invited to a traditional Beta Z wedding where, of course, everyone must be completely naked. So he wants to respect traditions, but he's a bit deeply uncomfortable with things. What's Elnor's approach here? Would it be A, politely ask the
Hey,
host?
hang on. Let's let Evan read the responses because he can do it in the Elnor voice.
Go for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
God, okay. So A politely asks the host, "Is full nudity truly mandatory?" My apologies, but I seem to have misplaced my confidence. That's a good one. My confidence. B, attend naked, maintaining an unblinking, serene stare as if contemplating the true nature of the universe. C, attempt to strategically position himself behind his tunkalang for the entire ceremony, only moving it slightly when absolutely necessary. Immediately volunteer for an urgent away mission to a desolate, freezing planet. Repent. Let's be honest. It's gonna be B. He's gonna attend naked, maintaining an unblinking, serene stare, contemplating the true nature of the universe. He's not gonna be looking up, down, or anything. He's just gonna be, he's gonna be zoned in. Yeah.
Nice one.
Yeah.
Nice one. Alrighty, and our final round for Elnor's ethical exploits is the Klingon quartermate. Question: Elnor is assigned to share quarters on the USS Excelsior with a new Klingon ensign who loves to play Klingon opera loudly and practices bat'leth swings dangerously close to Elnor's head. What is Elnor's Kowat Malat response? And we'll get you to read the choices.
Okay, so it's A, encourage the Klingon to get shit-faced on blood wine, hoping for a long, quiet, drunken slumber. B, grab his tunkalank and join the bat'leth practice, syncing his moves with the opera's loudest parts. C, propose a quiet time versus glorious noise schedule complete with a signed treaty. Or D, get the biggest noise-canceling headphones, build a pillow fort, and endure in silence. I'd say C. It'd be either, it would definitely be C, because I could imagine him being like, I've had enough. We need to implement something. But it wouldn't be that would be after maybe like a massive fight between the two of them. So it would probably be, it would be C. Quiet
It'd be
time,
the war first, then the treaty afterwards.
Yeah.
Nice. Now to wrap up the show, you've recently completed a short film called Anomaly, which deals with breakups, isolation, and UFO conspiracy theories. Can you tell us a little bit about this film and how maybe it influenced your views on extraterrestrial life and so forth? Tell us about Anomaly.
Well, my interest on extraterrestrials is what got me interested in the script, actually. So I really do believe in extraterrestrials, UAPs. There's an unidentified aerial phenomenon. That's what we call UFOs.
I hate that we call it that now. Why can't we just call it UFOs, for God's sake? Why do we have to change it?
I don't know. It's like the same. You say the word conspiracy nowadays, and everyone just is like, "Oh, you're some like crackpot, crazy person." But the word conspiracy, anyway. I agree, but it's based on this character. He is going through a breakup. His partner's just moved out, and he was never the most social person, and he was always obsessed with UFOs, let's call them. And he starts hearing these podcasts and these news articles about all of these flashing lights that have been going on in metropolitan areas. He also smokes a lot of marijuana and becomes a very paranoid person because he's got no more stability in his life. And he encounters a UFO, or what he believes to be a UFO, but you don't know whether it's just his mental state has completely broken to the point of no return, that he's just like hallucinating and gone through like a full maybe psychotic episode, or what he's actually witnessed is the truth. And both outcomes are equally terrifying, because if there is something else out there, life has a weird kind of meaning the meaning isn't like we are like the only ones out there, but then it's also like, well, if that's the truth, then like, what am I doing with my life? In terms of I've wasted, I mean, Hudson's 27 in it. So I've wasted 27 years of my life when nothing on earth really matters, because there's such a larger scope or bigger picture out there that we'll never be able to experience. Or I've devoted my life to this crazy conspiracy, and it's broken me to the point where there's no way of picking up the pieces. So that's essentially the premise. We are currently working on writing the feature. We've broken the story for that. It was 2 days of shooting at till 4 a.m, and it had started snowing, and I had flown back from New York to film, but I didn't have any of my warm winter clothes with me.
Oh, dear.
I was up on this rooftop at one, and it just started freezing cold and stuff. But it's really good, really, really interesting short. It's we're doing the festival circuit at the moment, so that'll be for.
Has it been released yet, or is it still due? Is it yet to come out?
It's where it's been submitted to the festivals. We can't actually put it online until they've been screened there. So it's maybe about 9 months away from being put up on social media or YouTube or anything like that. But it'll do really well. We had a nice little ragtag team of people, a little skeleton crew, and just some people who, wanting to have fun, some great VFX. It's very akin to those old abduction movies and stuff that you see. We paid homage to a lot of that stuff from the 90s and the 80s and stuff. So yeah, pretty happy with it. Very, very happy with it. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. Looking forward to seeing it when it comes out.
Yeah, I'll let you know when it's out. When I eventually post it. Hopefully it does well on the in the festival circuit. We'll see.
Was there any particular films that sort of influenced you? I can remember things like Fifth Kind and Fire in the Sky and Communion.
Yeah.
Well, Fire in the
still freaks me
Sky.
out.
What was that? Signs as well.
Signs,
M. Night Shyamalan.
M. Night. So, and then there was another one, the Spielberg one. That was we took a lot of.
Not
Close Encounters.
Close Encounters. Yeah,
Close Encounters. So we used a lot of we hired this massive light that was bigger than I am to film those kind of scenes where we were just blasting the indoors with these lights that were happening outside, so it gave this real ethereal look. We thought the director thought about it. I mean, I didn't do much thinking about it. He would just tell me these ideas, and I was like, that sounds fucking sick, let's do that. But it's nice little 7-minute short.
Cool. And what else is coming up on? I think you mentioned you were pitching some other show or something, or you had in the works, or you had something in development, or
there's a couple of things. There's a horror that's been in the works with a production company I'm not allowed to talk about, and then we are working towards financing this series. I'm actually not allowed to talk about any of this, but there's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes from writing, producing standpoint in order to get stuff off the ground now, because that just seems to be the way the world's moving. And it's kind of nice being involved in stories from the ground up, as opposed to, getting sent sides and then reading scripts. It's a great release of creativity, which has been fantastic. I wish I could say more. I'll be able to say more.
Otherwise, you'll have to kill us.
Exactly.
We value our lives. We choose to live. We choose to live.
Exactly. But a lot of stuff's in the works, which has been good. So we'll just see what happens. It's been a very productive year.
That's
Do you
great.
get onto the fan circuit at all, like in terms of doing conventions or anything? Is that something? 'Cause I think in Australia we don't have too much of that, but like when you're
No, we don't, but
stateside,
I'm
do
going to
you?
be at Trek Las Vegas in August. First time I've been there in like 3 years, I think it was. So excited to go back there and have a gamble on some blackjack and just meet all the fans. It's such a nice environment there. Everyone's really friendly. No one's an asshole, and just a non-toxic fandom, which is refreshing.
That's good.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show today, Evan. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Yeah, been a long time between drinks. It's been good. Thank you for having me.
No, always a pleasure. We've had a chat a few times before, and it's always great to talk Star Trek with you and see what you got going on and everything. And you've always got a free pass to come on any time. So it's always fantastic to have you.
Well, when when I get some when I can make my announcements and stuff, I can kind of share some visuals.
Absolutely.
On because it's exciting stuff, and it'll be up your guys' alley.
Awesome. Can't wait for it.
All right. Perfect.
So thank in other stuff. I think David and I have got David's done a new deep dive dust off for Deep Space Nine's Far Beyond the Stars episode, one of the most beloved episodes of DS9. We're putting the final touches on the editing for that. We should have that coming out. It's Saturday. What is it? Late? No, it's what is it? Late. It's probably early Saturday night for the US. So you guys over in the US should wake up to that on Sunday morning to see that. So that'll be coming out in probably after I finish editing it, maybe about 8 hours time or thereabouts. So look forward to that. And as always, I'll have, videos coming up pretty soon on whatever's going on in Star Trek news and all that sort of stuff. So thank you, Evan, for coming on the show. It's been fantastic.
Appreciate you. Always good chatting with you.
Thanks, Evan.
And thanks, David, as always. And I will catch you guys next time on the next episode of Sci-Finatics Live. Live long and prosper. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks. See you next time.
Bye for now.